Please welcome Frida Polli, PhD, CEO of Pymetrics, to engage in a conversation on unlocking human potentials across AI-powered decisions.
So it's a pleasure to be here. And first thing I'd like to do is introduce my co-presenter on this topic of great interest to all of you, I'm sure, Amber Grewal, who's the head of talent at BCG. And together we will be talking about how you can use artificial intelligence and soft skills to really unlock human potential in a way that previously hadn't been thought of before. And again, I'm the CEO and co-founder of pymetrics. Amber, did you want to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Great, Frida. Hello, very nice to meet you all. Really excited to be here. As Frida mentioned, I serve as BCG's managing director and partner and global head of talent, really responsible for advancing BCG's human capital and management strategy as we look at transforming future models of global talent. And really great to be here.
Fantastic. And so, Amber, I think we have an exciting agenda for the audience. So we really want to touch on three key questions. So the first is, why is traditional people science limiting? And I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, so I definitely want to give you the opportunity to talk about BCG and the bionic talent model you guys have, which is super exciting. Secondly, how can soft skills be used across talent decisions? And third, last but not least, is how can we use soft skills and AI together to measure human potential and reduce bias? So again, very quickly, traditional people science can be quite limiting, mostly because it relies on sort of dated ways of looking at people and somewhat of a 2D understanding, heavily reliant on sort of resume reviews and manual process. And I know that, Amber, you're keen to make this process far less manual and much more bionic. So you'll be telling us a little bit about that later. My contribution to this section is just to say that my background is as a cognitive scientist at Harvard and MIT. And what's really amazing about the field of cognitive science is it's really given us a way to look at people in a completely novel format. And I say that because, as a scientist, spent a bunch of time in the lab thinking about how can we measure people differently. And really, scientific advancements have yielded really important insights about human behavior. And that's sort of what we can bring to bear on the problem of quantifying soft skills, which for so long were thought of as intangible and very hard to quantify. The beauty of quantifying soft skills using behavior, so again, pymetrics quantifies soft skills by looking at people's behavior rather than relying on self-report, is that it really presents a 3D picture of someone and also really focuses on neurodiversity. There's no one size fits all. It's much more around everybody has potential to do many things and focusing on how to connect them directly with the things that they're best suited for. These are just some examples of the soft skills that you can measure using this novel type of approach. But again, the universe of things that one can measure using a more novel approach to looking at soft skills is quite broad. And again, pymetrics is an example of this. There's certainly others in market that have similar unique approaches to soft skill measurement. I want to pause here for 1 second because I think we obviously at pymetrics and also BCG, I think, are convinced that soft skills are critical to the future of work. But if you look at the research, I think people are sort of converging on the fact that soft skills are recognized as an increasingly important part of being able to sort of measure the labor force, with 92% of talent professionals saying that soft skills are just as, if not more important than hard skills. And yet a lot of those same people struggling to really be able to quantify soft skills in a way that works for them. So I'll pause there, Amber, and just say, after just mentioning the fact that soft skills are really important, again, it's something that you and I care a lot about, measuring potential rather than being backwards looking, right? I'd love to just pause there and get your thoughts on what is it that at BCG you think is critical in terms of what soft skills are you guys looking for? How do you think about it in terms of factoring it into the much broader equation of what you are looking for with respect to talent?
Sure. And I think before even BCG, I think if you look at the primary factors, drivers at the macro level, that is not just for BCG, but the shift that's happening across the world is we just see this ongoing advancement, both in technology, the markets are transforming. It's really requiring more flexibility of thinking, quick and continuous learning and mobility. And what we're seeing is that jobs themselves are constantly evolving,
Yes.
which skills are changing. I mean, if you think about just the life of a skill, it's changed. Its average shelf life is about 4 to 5 years. And which just means nearly having one skill and settling down with your career is just impossible.
Yeah.
Actually, research is showing us that about 87% of companies are going to be experiencing skill gaps or expecting them.
Yeah.
So that really means for us employers, it's not just looking at what work you will do, but how you will do it.
Yes.
And that's where I think soft skills is just not one job alone. It helps you prepare for the changing landscape and new technologies and environments, and it helps you pivot. And now when we think about it for BCG specifically, people are our number one asset, and we have a very diverse portfolio of talent around the world. And we like to look at people's interests and their values, their knowledge, their skill and experiences, and ambition level. So we are very driven on looking at personalized talent experiences, but we're also very well known for careful evaluation of the talent process to make sure that we're bringing in the brightest. So when it comes to our consulting and associate roles, we include in our recruiting process case interviews, assessments, behavioral interview, as well as written case interviews. And the 3 core skills at BCG we like to test is problem solving, math, obviously the cognitive side, but then some of the soft skills of creativity and business sense, generating innovative ideas, communication, their effectiveness to make impact. And so we're seeing that you need both the cognitive and non-cognitive skills, and see how people can adapt to the changing influence. Pymetrics has been a really game changer for us. We're piloting it in multiple markets around the world, and we're really starting to widen our selection criteria to attract the most diverse talent. And what we've seen is the correlation of candidates that are doing the gaming and soft test assessments. We're seeing a positive correlation between how they score on our cognitive interview assessment. So we're really seeing the soft skill and the cognitive skills coming together, both the social emotional traits of an individual to give us access to, what their whole potential could be.
Exactly. And I think that's so critical. And, I think one of the things that, really attracted us to working with BCG, and I wonder if you could speak a little bit about this, is really how you guys are thinking about sourcing diverse talent, right? Because, I think one of the ways in which pymetrics is often leveraged, and certainly you guys leverage it, is really to cast a wider net, think more broadly about who could be successful at BCG, not who has been already, because that I think you guys are outstanding at selecting more of those, but who haven't we thought about before that could really shine and bring, sort of diversity of thought and other things. So I'd love to just get your thoughts on sort of some key considerations in really being able to broaden that funnel, and then obviously use a tool like pymetrics to leverage that plus just walk us through a little bit of your bionic talent model that I know you're extremely proud of, and have really shook up BCG with this idea. So I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, diversity inclusion, it's such an important topic. And for BCG, we're so committed with both clear actions and transparency. And we know that we have to broaden our talent pools, both with traditional as well as untraditional channels. But really, I think it starts with our vision and strategy of a bionic integrated talent model. And what that really is about is some key outcomes that we want to deliver. So when we think about what this bionic talent model is, it is integrating key outcomes across the whole talent life cycle, from looking at predicting all the way to attracting to the exit and the life cycle of a talent journey. And it's really connecting and help augmenting high value human solutions with bionic technology solutions to drive key outcomes. Starting to think about leveraging data to give us predictive alerts. Where is talent supply? Where is their attrition risk? Where is their skill shortage? What should our sourcing strategy be based on data and analytics to even before you go to market, looking at data from both, internal aspects, but externally social available data. When you look at things like Burning Glass out there and, big platforms like Eightfold, you're able to see a lot of information to start thinking about how you should actually go source. To then moving into our attraction strategy, which is leveraging both AI to personalize the experience for our talent pool, having more career matching for candidates, personalized job alerts, giving people more job experience stimulation, what the day in life could be of being a BCGer. There's a lot of talent that doesn't know what management consulting is all about.
Yes.
So helping people understand what that could be like and giving them the experience with job stimulation and digital experience there. Because that helps us broaden the talent pool. And now, as everything's gone digital, we can broaden our pool so much. And then the selection criteria, I think, again, makes it so unique, leveraging cognitive gaming, predictive hiring, leveraging AI live interviews, matching interviews to case recommenders, you name it, to leveraging that AI through the whole life cycle itself.
Yep. And, I have to pause on that for a second because you and I have talked about this. My dad, was a management consultant for, for 3 decades. Right. And so there's 2 things that are kind of relevant to this. One is that to your point, I think that unless you grow, first of all, as a child, I had a very hard time explaining to anyone what my dad did. So to your point, not many people know what management consulting is. And so if you've never experienced it, how would you ever know if you're a good fit? And so I do think that, job simulations, previews, and all of that is really good. And also just exposing more people to this role. And then secondly, we were talking about this before the start of the show, which is that, historically we've thought about careers as being 3 decades long. Now the average career or life sort of tenure at a firm could be, as short as a couple of years, right? And so really when we think about soft skills, what's fantastic about soft skills and sort of AI powered talent decision making is that it can really help understand a person's fit for a future role, even if they've never done it before. So that's kind of the beauty, and that's why it unlocks potential, is because, Frida Polli is currently an entrepreneur. Prior to that was a scientist. There are many other things that my soft skill profile could say I'm a good fit for, many of which I haven't done and many of which I may not do. But that's sort of the beauty, I think, of leveraging not just the resume, which is a very backward looking document that tells you what you have done, and it's pretty easy to understand. It's really what could someone do, right? And it just really opens up a person's potential, but also the potential of a firm, like BCG, that's very forward looking, to really cast, a much broader net. So I think it's just been very impressive to watch you guys roll out this talent attraction strategy and really leveraging all aspects of AI. You've mentioned some other really important players that we often work with as well, Eightfold, and Burning Glass. So I think all of these different technology layers are so critical in really helping us understand human potential. So
that's right. And I think what's really important part of it is, we talk about this notion of fit, and, that really has implications on inclusion too, right? So we try to kind of shy away for saying, is someone a fit, more than we want to look at it, what is their performance success indicators, or what is their potential? Because that really gives us the whole view of the human potential itself. And that's why the soft skills, the cognitive skills, and understanding, what is this individual's ambition, their passion, because you're right, looking at just a resume or looking at where they've been and, what GPA they have, is just limiting. And, I think just broadening the talent pools and seeing how diverse our talent is and where we're hiring very different places than we had before, it's exciting because, BCG is not the same company it used to be 10 years ago. If we look at how we've expanded our digital footprint, our Gamma business, how we're, looking at cloud technologies, AI, we ourselves have moved into such bionic models that we also had to really converge our skills, both the digital and the consulting strategy side. So it's been an evolution for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's been, real pleasure to work with you over a number of years and see the evolution of BCG into this bionic talent model, which I give you tremendous credit for. So, one thing I think we have to touch on, right, because we've talked a lot about, sort of artificial intelligence and automation. There's a lot of concern, as I'm sure you know, Amber, in the field that artificial intelligence will not lead to fair decisions. I think it's important for us to touch upon that quickly, and I have a few slides that I will bring back. Because, that's a question we get often is, okay, pymetrics, you're using all these cool new technologies, but how can you actually ensure that what you're doing is fair? And so I just want to take a minute to speak to that, because I think that there are some, real concerns, but then also some ways to mitigate, issues that come about. Because again, we've just, spent the last 15 minutes talking about how wonderful automation and AI is. But again, in the public domain, there's a lot of concern. So just very quickly, again, I'm a cognitive scientist and have used AI now for 2 decades in, in both research and now practical use cases. So I just want to dispel want to address real concerns and then also dispel some common sort of misperceptions. So, one of the things that we can say for sure is that in our questioning of AI, whether it really is friend or foe, there are sort of 2 elements to consider, right? And one very important element is the data, right? Because ultimately algorithms are trained on real world data. And if data in the world is historically biased, it will then potentially lead to biased algorithms. And that's sort of what we've seen, right? Is that biased or problematic input data then leads to biased algorithms. And that's where all these, sort of scary headlines come from, saying, Amazon was now unfortunately very well known for this, resume parser that they built that was, discriminating against women. There have been sort of, video interviewing platforms that have been in the news. So there's been a lot of talk about how AI, when it's not sort of vetted properly, can actually exacerbate the problem. And that's absolutely true, right? And so, but I think that there are a couple of ways that we can think about improving on the situation that should make us feel comfortable about using AI, particularly when it's been developed with sort of fairness principles in mind, right? And so I can only speak to what we do at Pymetrics, but I'm just going to walk you through kind of the 3 things that we think are important and I think can be leveraged broadly, not just at Pymetrics, but in other places. And I'm sure, Amber, that in your internal work at BCG, I'm sure you leverage similar methodologies. So the first thing that we have to be careful about is the data, right? So that is actually one of the beautiful things about soft skill data. It is generally far less biased than resume data or other forms of data. Now, again, not to say you can't use resume data properly, you absolutely can. But the beauty about soft skills is that people's attention, people's emotional traits, people's risk preference, and so on generally tend to be fairly evenly distributed across gender, across race, and across socioeconomic status. So you're already starting with essentially a data set that is much, much easier to work with and much easier to build unbiased algorithms. So that's the first part. The second part is what we do and what others do is what's called a dual optimization process. Now, that's just a lot of jargon, but essentially what it means is that we build our algorithms to essentially match equal numbers of men and women, equal numbers of people of different ethnic backgrounds. And we test all of our algorithms so they have what's called, statistical parity or, equal match rates essentially between groups. And if they don't have those equal match rates between groups, we actually will not deploy that algorithm. So it's a very specific process that we put all of our algorithms through, and we've had this process audited by independent third-party experts. So they will verify that we do exactly what we say we do. And then last but not least, it's really important to monitor your algorithms once they go into deployment, because again, it's all fine and dandy to build them this way and be like, oh, they're perfect. But then if you deploy them and they, start to work in a different manner and maybe, less optimal way, it's really important to keep tabs on that. So that's the other sort of commitment that we make to all of our clients, is that not only do we test algorithms and not deploy them unless they have these these fairness metrics, but we will also continue to monitor them as they go into deployment. And I think if we all could abide by those general principles when we design AI, I think we would have far less of these issues because, if, for example, companies were very, sort of methodical about testing their algorithms before releasing them and then continuing to monitor them as they're deployed, I think we'd see a lot less of the issues that we've currently seen in the field with AI. Any thoughts on that, Amber?
No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, one thing that I would say, as you think about incorporating AI into your talent strategies, because of course doing this both at BCG and Intel and IBM, I've had a lot of learning on it. And I would always say, first start with thinking, what outcome are you trying to solve? It can't just be we're using AI for just for no reason for it, right? Or I think it's what outcomes are you trying to deliver? Do you want to, increase the speed of your hiring? Do you want to reduce attrition? Do you want to, personalize the learning experience? What are you looking to help augment that could drive more value to the day-to-day people that are trying to solve, some of the business challenges? So I think that is very important. And then going to your point of, then around that outcome, where do you have this data? Yep. What data do you have? Is the data structured? And making sure that outside of it being structured, there's no bias in it. And you have to look at different aspects, I'll tell you, because when it comes to a lot of the recruiting side, people look at past data, which is who have I hired? Yep. And if you're looking at your ATS and you looked at past data, and I'll know, it's not real-time data, because what happens, a lot of recruiters out there, we all know the ATS, trying to keep it real time is difficult. Yep. So a lot of times you'll put this information in and it's really past data, and just looking at that one view is not enough. So you have to look at your performance, you have to look at the attraction side, you have to look at your assessments and interview side, and then making sure will those data and making it anonymized data, so that there's no personalization, no personal data of an individual. I think all of these things are very important. And to your point, making sure you're measuring along the indicator to then say, do I need to make some changes? Is this algorithm still relevant for what I need? And of course, data privacy is very important throughout the process as well.
Yep. And I just wanted to share this slide because one of my favorite quotes about artificial intelligence is that, AI is like teenage sex. Like everybody says they're doing it, but then nobody really knows what it is, right? And so, I think putting up this slide to say that there are many, many use cases of artificial intelligence. And as you can see, these are all the ways in which, clients use our platform. And I'm sure at BCG, it's the same. You guys you walked us through some of the ways that you can use it. But to your point, we shouldn't just be using AI because it's the new buzzword or cool new thing. Like I think you absolutely have to think, okay, where can it be helpful? What am I trying to do? What am I trying to optimize? And again, there's many, many different places where it can be super helpful. Again, talent acquisition, mobility and reskilling, redeployment, and so on and so forth. So there's obviously many use cases, but I think just being careful about what the goal is. And then, again, we've seen tremendous amount of improvement, and I'm sure you have as well, Amber, in terms of just not only efficiency, that's kind of table stakes, but, massive increases in gender, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity, as well as, hiring people that, perform better, stay longer. And, quite frankly, and I always laugh about this. So I think I mentioned this to you. So we see better, candidate experience. And it's so funny because when we were first sort of deploying pymetrics, we would come across folks that would say, oh, but are you sure that people want to go through 20 to 25 minutes worth of activities to get a job? That sounds like a terrible candidate experience. And I couldn't help but think to myself, my goodness, these people haven't been through a job search process in a long time, right? So I started pymetrics out of HBS, and at HBS where students are absolutely overserved, meaning they have tons of opportunities, amazing companies like BCG and many others come on campus to recruit. Even there, the experience was, known as the resume black hole, right? Like you submit your resume and maybe you get an email back telling you that, your resume has been, reviewed Many times you don't. And so the fact of, making the experience more interactive, which I know is critical to your bionic talent model as well, right? Like giving people feedback, directing them to the right opportunities, right? I mean, I think sometimes we scare people away with this idea that AI is impersonal, but actually, if you think about everything that we do in our lives today, right? Everything on our smartphone right here, it's all powered by artificial intelligence, and it makes it more personal. It makes it much more candidate friendly. It makes it so that you want to engage with the platform. And the same can be said for artificial intelligence and its use in recruiting, right? And giving people feedback, pointing them to opportunities if, the one that they initially think is right for them is not right for them, and so on. And I know, Amber, you have a lot of thoughts on this, so I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, no, Frida, I think the personalization piece is really important, because as people opt in, as they're opting in and saying, I want to learn, I want to, follow your company, then you can target the information the right way. So, one of the things, as I mentioned to us, as part of broadening our talent pools into having people understand what management consulting is, one is giving them that job stimulation and helping them understand. But the second thing is, how do you prepare for the assessments that we have? Both the soft skills, but case interviews, those are very unique and very different. So, we are digitalizing and leveraging, chatbots with AI to, help coach people along the process as well, to prepare and, give them feedback on how can they prepare better the next time? How can they prepare for an interview? Who are the kind of people that they should network with? Who are BCGers they could follow? But again, it's that personalizing the experience based on the individual as well, that I think that piece of it is important. And you're right, you can use AI assist, career assist as well. If you're not, if they're looking for feedback, there shouldn't be going into a black hole, making sure that, there's basic feedback, implementing it in your career side, answering basic questions. But I do see that there's a lot of more opportunity to have automation across the talent journey. And I think a lot of companies and a lot of the market is doing that, because there's so much value add. We're seeing it from a diversity perspective. We're seeing it from a quality perspective, from a speed perspective, efficiency. And to be honest, it's giving our teams and people opportunity to do more high valuable things, which is talking to the candidate, talking to the business, and solving those problems. So I'm a big fan, and I think, as long as we leverage it for the right outcomes, there's transparency, we're looking at data privacy laws, and I think there's a lot of benefits for this. And, of course, excited on our bionic model vision, which, we'll continue to share throughout the years about.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, just to give, sort of what I would say a general client example that's true, not only BCG, but many of our clients, right? I mean, I would say, there are a lot of companies, right, where historically they have gotten, 200,000 people applying a year, 500,000, 1 million, like some enormous number of people, right? And so what would they do prior to opening up the funnel with an AI tool? They would, quite frankly, just not have the time to review a lot of those people, right? And so they would already pre-select the folks that they would look at, right? They would say, okay, I know these schools, I know these talent pools, I'm going to focus my time on maybe 10%, 20% of the folks that are applying to me. And just, quite frankly, if I get around to the other ones, I will, but, I'm not sure with my manual process that I'll have time. And now what they can do is give everybody the same shot. Do you know what I mean? By using something that really opens up the top of funnel. And I mean, the client stories that we've heard are just, to me, they're really heartwarming, right? Whereby, I'll never forget one client we basically had to change their relocation policies for interns because they were hiring such a diverse class of interns that, people were saying, look, I don't have the means to fly across country and rent an apartment as per their previous intern class, right? And to them, that was so eye-opening, because it was like, wow, I didn't even realize how sort of, my talent processes had led to, a fairly homogenous group of people being considered as opposed to a much broader group of people, So I think that, like, for all the stories we hear, cautionary tales, which again, I absolutely believe that AI has to be designed with, the first principles that we mentioned. I think we have to then look at the countervailing examples, right? Where people of much, much different backgrounds, and I know that's how you guys have used it as a tool for inclusion, right, are now being given the same opportunity that, you know, previously potentially they were not being included for. And so I think that's just a really powerful narrative that we see across, you know, the vast majority of our clients that we work with. So I think it's a very heartwarming narrative, and one that I think is very in line with what, you know, you and I and others I think in the field hope to see with you know, with these advances in AI and recruiting. And, you know, the other thing, again, my background, came to HBS, watched recruiting for 2 years. That's how this whole platform started. Like, it's such an inefficient and sort of, you know, dispiriting experience, you know, even there, like, people just feel like I'm getting rejected all the time. I'm not getting any feedback, like, you know, and I think that's just the common experience that people have in recruiting, is that, you know, you kind of have to ready yourself for something that's going to be pretty challenging. And what if we could actually make that experience far easier, just like we do with other things in life that we're looking to, that used to be very painful, right? And now has been made so much easier with, you know, with some level of automation and inclusion. So I know that's a hope that we both share. And I think, you know, slowly but surely chipping away at making that a reality. So
that's great. It's, you know, it's Frida, it's like innovations like yours that are helping us, you know, in the talent function bring this experience, but at the same time, you know, it's helping prepare individuals. I'm very passionate about just the reskilling revolution, and at the same time, you know, it's exciting to see that the market is changing. There's new innovations. I mean, obviously, with what happened with COVID, we see the level of digitalization that's happening across HR and talent is significant. So I am very hopeful that the experiences are changing. And end of the day, it's about people. It's about talent. They are the potential that every company is looking for. And I am just so happy to see that we are broadening this to say it is the hard skills, the soft skills. Yep. It's your individual potential that could unlock a company. And I think it's really exciting.
Yep. And, you know, Amber, since it doesn't seem like we have a question right now, I actually have a question for you, because I think, to your point of, you know, having a purpose for deploying AI is so critical, but do you want to speak to what makes a successful partnership? Because I know that you've worked with Eightfold. I know you've worked with other platforms as well. What do you think is critical to working with, you know, a technology platform in this space? Because I think, you know, successful engagements are reciprocal, right? The vendor or the technology partner has to be on board, but also the client has to be on board. And I know you've sort of, you know, pioneered a lot of interaction and engagement with different technology players, including pymetrics, including Eightfold. Do you want to just speak to what you think is the secret to success in working with partners like us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, you know, end of the day, it's for a company to clearly know what are you trying to solve. Yep. And, you know, could technology unlock that? That is first and foremost, because when you think about all the various transformations you're going, there's an operating model piece, there's a people and transformation piece, you know, there's your process innovation, and there's technology. Yep. And when you start looking from technology, you have to clearly understand what are you looking for that is going to help you drive that business outcomes. And then you start thinking about who are the players that are doing this in the market itself. And as you select these vendors, I think it's very important to understand if they are leveraging AI, how are they training their models? Yep. Where are they getting the data? Because, I mean, I will tell you, I see every new startup popping up left and right. And I do think it's, you know, understanding where's this technology and algorithms coming from? Like, Frida, your background with HBS and, you know, the deep understanding and experience you have, and knowing that this AI has to be very transparent, bias-free, like these things are very important. So knowing that background. Secondly, how open is the vendor to evolving to your outcomes and needs, right? Like, I think it's it has to be configurable for each client as well. So I think that's why, that configuration, you can't just plug and play and say everyone's going to do the same thing, because we're going to be different than someone else. So I think that flexibility and that relationship and giving feedback and saying, how is it working? How can we make this better? Which I think has been great in partnering with you guys on, and many others that we partner with. And some things, to be honest, we know that we have to build on our own. Because they're very unique, and that's something that's been very unique. As for us, we have our Gamma business, which does deep analytics, ML, and AI, and we partnered with them to build a whole data hub for us, our machine layer. But then being able to partner with yourself and others to say, how do we now give the front end experience to our candidate? So those are some ideas.
And one other thing I just wanted to mention is that I think what's critical really is patience as well on the company side, right? Because I think that there is a new hot startup every, it seems like every week. But then unfortunately, a lot of times it just sort of, they kind of come and they fizzle. And I think that just having a more patient view of the landscape to say, and not only that, but also doing that diligence of saying, is the technology that they're bringing to market credible? Like, can I, do they have documentation? Do they have, all of the documentation and other stuff that you would want to see in this field? I think, is so critical. So I think taking a patient view and not just being like, distracted by, the shiny new object is really, I don't know. I think that that's something that you as a person and you as a firm have done super well. I think, that is great. Anyways, Amber, thank you so much for, doing this presentation with me.